This is a review and a modification list for the John Deere 8400R pedal tractor. It's made by Raleigh. It's from Germany, and you can order them off the John Deere website. They're really exceptional little tractors. I'm very pleased with the quality of all the plastic parts. The build of it was very easy. The plastic is very thick all over. You can take the pins off, you can take the bucket off, you can raise and lower the hood all the way that it comes. It has a handbrake, it has the low speed and high speed, which change the chain drive, which is really nice. It's got the hitch pins on the front and the back. And overall, the quality is more than I even expected. Really, really good stuff. So what I did is I have a bigger 5300 tractor that I mow and do work around the farm with. And it's got lights on it because I can never do anything before it gets dark. Don't have that much time. And the boy is always taking my flashlights and putting them on his tricycles and on his bike to pretend that he's mowing, just like me. So for Christmas, I decided I'm going to put LEDs on this before I give this to him for Christmas. I had a couple of these little short LED light bars. These are the little 9-watt floods from the Amazon website. And so basically, I put one of those on the front, one of them on the rear, same thing. And then this is one of the little forklift LED flashing lights. And I had to put black tape around it to tone it down because it's just so bright. So I put those on here. I put a bolt through the little roll bar all the way so this wouldn't get ripped off. And then it's got a bolt through the hood, kind of offset to clear this little hood piece. These things have this hood that you can raise and lower and pretend there's an engine in here already. Pretty cool. What I did is I added the little battery box for the breakaway brake batteries on trailers. So that's the same battery in the same box. I just trimmed, there's a flange you can mount on this side. I trimmed it off and screwed it down to the base. It also has the little plug for the battery tender to plug in the battery tender and keep the battery fresh when I need to. Besides that, standard wiring install. I did put 2 holes in the back of the engine bay here into the firewall. And one of those goes all the way to the back. And the other one goes right up here to this switch. This little switch is a standard automotive switch. It is grounded, so when you turn it on, it illuminates. And I put it in so that down is off, so when he's moving his hand down and around, it doesn't turn it on by accident. So one of those wires, it's pretty stiff wire, it's 16 gauge wire in a sheath. It's like a outdoor speaker wire, basically. I put it all tight, so it's tied up inside this frame right here, and it pokes out of this little hole back here. I put the zip tie on it to keep it from sucking back in and dragging on the chain or anything. And then there's another hole here that goes up into the actual roll bar. If you take the pedal access plate off down here, and there's another axle access plate back here, you can flip this on its back and see all this, and you can get to, you can't reach easily, but you can at least see how to poke it in. I started back here and I pushed the wire up until I grabbed it in through this pedal box, and then I reached it again with a piece of wire and a coat hanger and fished it through the hole. It works really well. So that's the one thing I did before Christmas. He absolutely loved it, thought it was fantastic. I'm gonna turn the lights off here so I can show you how it works. Switch is on, and as you can see, the lights shine really nicely. Any more light than this, it would be ridiculous. They're really bright anyway, but it's not overpowering. It's not too much when he's cruising around the barn and the house, and he absolutely loves it. So the other modification I've made, it's been cold here, hasn't been able to get much traction on the limestone crushed rock pathways that we have around the barn. And in the pasture, when it's wet and icy, he hasn't been able to go very far without me pushing him. So what I did is I said, all right, I need to do some kind of mod for traction, but I don't want to make it too heavy because these things, they're kind of hard to pedal. You know, the kid has to use his muscles. Well, I said, okay, so let me do some measuring and some thinking. And I was looking at this tire on my 180 here, and I was like, that's almost the same size. So I did some measuring, and I went to Tractor Supply, and I got one of these high run turf tires. It's a 16 by 6.5 by 8. So it's a turf tire. What I noticed about the turf tire is that it has a little bit of a directional tread. It goes all the way across the whole thing. It's not the wedge tread, but it does kind of have this directional tread. These Raleigh tractors are 2-speed, but only this wheel actually drives, not this one. It's not a big deal, but it means traction is really hard to get when you're stuck. So what I did, because it was fun, is I took a blade, took a good carbide blade on my box knife there, and I started cutting down the center of the tread. It's actually one block over. It's not the right in the center, but it's one block over in between these grooves. And then I used the 10 snips to help finish that up, and I cut it in half. Then I cut these little blocks out. So what I did is I cut every third one out. And what it did is, just because it was lucky, it fit the tread pattern of the plastic tread blocks perfectly. So I got some expanding head rivets that I had from the race car supplies, and I used a flat bottom wood bit and just hogged out each place where these go, and it works beautifully. Here on the side, it's the exact same diameter as the wheel, so the bead fits it beautifully. I did this just to make sure it holds up next to it and mud and stuff doesn't get into it. But it really works very, very well. And it's no taller, really, than the center little rubber strip that was the original traction. So it doesn't interfere with the fender. And it really doesn't make it any heavier at all, or much wider. It's pretty much the same. It looks almost like they made it that way. And I don't really care. I just didn't want it to be heavier and harder to work. So that's a pretty good mod. If you don't have frozen ground that often, it's probably not that big a deal. Overall, we are so happy with this. He is just ecstatic. He just wants to ride this thing all the time. He's had it for 2 days now. He's a strong boy. He digs around the property all the time. He uses farm tools. So I was concerned if I didn't buy something strong and heavy, he'd break it. And so this is really good stuff. Very well built, very heavy. Everything is through bolt and through axle. So the mount for all this goes all the way through to this side and back. This whole thing is a really exceptional little tractor. I did have to set this back a little bit because when I raise this up, I wanted clearance, and this automatically closes and holds his bucket up. You can dump these buckets like this, and it works exceptionally well. If you have sons or daughters, granddaughters, grandsons, whoever, my girls are just as much into this stuff. They just missed it by a few years. They do make a smaller version of this. This is, I think, the biggest one that they have. I highly recommend it. Well worth the money. They're almost $500 as you can buy it. And then I bet I've got another 75 bucks in LEDs, a battery box, and some wire off of, Amazon, wherever. And then the tire was another 45 bucks. So I don't know. I'll probably put another 150 bucks into it because that's what you do when your kid's into farm stuff like you are. So they make the smaller version. I'm sure they're just as good a quality. They're made by Raleigh, which is Kettler. I think it's the same place. The reason why we got this and not one of the Gator ride-ons is because my son's really almost too big for those. He's a little bit too tall. He's 6 years old, probably weighs 60 plus pounds. He's kind of a tall kid, super strong. And so I wanted that energy to go to use. And he has been pedaling on this probably for 4 or 5 hours today, and he can still keep going. So the seat adjusts, and the weight capacity of this thing is like 100 pounds. So we're really happy about that. And we think it'll give us a lot of good years of use. Maybe even grandson territory someday. Anyway, all right. Hope this helps y'all out in making a purchase.